Love podcasts, hate nonsense. It's the PoliticsJOE podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Happy week 3.
Week 3, we're in. I've got a question for you.
Oh, shoot.
When was the last time you watched The Thick of It?
Because this is just like it.
No, I'm not making a milquetoast observation.
When was the last time I watched it? A couple of years ago, probably.
I'm rewatching it at the moment. Was rewatching it anyway. I'm not doing something like weird, like, this is just like real life.
Yeah.
Shit. There's an episode.
We've got Armando Iannucci coming in soon.
Do we?
Yeah.
Might not tell the story then.
No, I'm sure it's fine.
There's a bit where Chris Addison's character says the N-word. Just fully.
What's the context?
He's doing an impression of a man who lives in Brixton.
Right.
And he says, as we say in Brixton, quote, open quote, does like a black accent and finishes the quote with the N-word. And it is so jarring.
Right, okay. This wasn't in the rundown, listeners.
Yes, it was.
Right. Is it okay to say the N-word?
The longest podcast of all time.
Okay. So, Chris Addison's character in The Thick of It is Ollie.
Yes. Hang on.
A sort of bumbling, terminally uncool, under pressure Westminster spad.
Yeah.
So, is him doing a racist caricature of a person that lives in Brixton part of his character arc as being a detached Westminster spad who is filled with latent racism?
Yes, potentially.
Do you think that was it, or do you think it was insensitive? And if you think it was insensitive, the follow-up question is, whilst by our current moral standards we don't approve of such behaviour, when this episode went out in what, presumably like 2006 or something, do we uphold them to the same moral standard that we do now?
So I don't think it lands, because I don't think Ollie is ever characterised as cruel.
Yeah.
Or like he's like
often the conscience.
He's a geek. He's like a weedy geeky guy, but at no point is it ever suggested that he's a bigot.
Yeah.
So it just comes across like very jarring and like something. So even if that's the intention, I'm not sure it lands. I think in 2006 it was pretty not okay for a white person to say the N-word on television.
Little Britain.
They never said the N-word.
No, but I mean,
they blacked
as
out.
far as racial caricatures.
Yeah, no, true. But I think like there is like,
I think within the culture, and certainly in that early noughties culture, when you had like, what was it? What's that? I don't know the guy's name, who would present like the fat family next door. Do you ever, you know, there's like a whole vein of noughties TV content that was basically like, these people are fat. And that was it. That was the premise.
These people, they're poor.
Yeah, no, they did that as well.
It's such a good time capsule of like television at the time.
So vindictive, so nasty. The heyday of Jeremy Kyle.
Absolutely. There's a bit. It's very funny when they talk about, in The Thick of It, they talk about what we could do. It's like, and these scroungers on benefits, and just the language is so of its time, so uniquely 2005.
It's coming back though, baby.
That stuff like that.
The austerity stuff, yeah. The like benefit scroungers. That's definitely a resurgent aspect of mainly the Conservative Party and their talking points. But you're hearing it a little bit now. You're hearing it a little bit now from Labour Party politicians. So don't be so sure that it's gone. Don't be so sure that it's dead. Well, I look forward to discussing that with Armando Iannucci.
5 hours.
When we interview him, 5-hour discourse. Is it okay to say the N-word in a comedy show in 2006? Discuss. You enjoying watching it though?
Yeah, it's good. It's very funny. I think the best character is Jamie, the Malcolm Tucker's
number
friend.
2, friend.
I think they're friends
because they're both Scottish.
Their relationship is never actually like, their working relationship is never actually addressed. It's just, here's Jamie and he's weird.
He's weirder, worse than Tucker. Yeah.
He's weirder and has less of a handle on himself than Malcolm Tucker.
Yeah, I was quoting a bit of, I was doing like a bastardised Thick of It bit on LBC this weekend, like, I was going, what policy ideas can the Tory party dream up to like fix this? And it was like, do away with computers. Yes, and spare room database. Tripling quiet carriages on intercity trains, like all their different policy ideas that they're trying to fucking quiet bat people.
I saw the actor who plays Jamie in a play quite recently.
Any good?
Yeah, he was good.
What was the play?
It's called This Is Memorial Device. And it was previously a novel about a fictional punk band from Airdrie. And he plays like a super fan who has putting on an exhibition on the greatest punk band that Airdrie has ever seen. It was good.
Are the tickets still out there?
I'm not sure it's still on.
Finished its run.
I think it was like a 3-night run at a theatre in Hammersmith.
Can't go and see it now, can you?
No, but the book's good.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Last weekend in Boston. Not the fun one.
Not the fun one. The sad one.
Boston, Lincolnshire.
Absolutely.
Not Boston, Massachusetts.
No. Most Brexit place in Britain.
Most Brexit place in Britain, yeah.
Previously murder capital of Britain.
Not anymore, though. Good. They've sort of started to bring that down. Yeah.
Yep.
Getting better. And spending time in Boston, understanding the things that happen in Boston. From where does that high murder rate stem? What's going on there?
So Boston, I don't really feel equipped to diagnose a high murder rate specifically. I don't really think I've got the tools to equip that.
So if we talk about Boston as a place, right, it's the town itself, central town, very poor, very deprived, right? And around Boston is some of the most fertile and therefore valuable agricultural land that surrounds it, right? So it's that weird sort of donut effect. And in these, this land around it, you've got people like James Dyson, British billionaire, buying up hundreds, thousands of acres of land. And actually at Dyson's place, some of the most high-tech, like agricultural business going on, right? So he has these like autonomous robots that are pruning strawberries in these ginormous greenhouses that he intends to be able to grow fruit all year round in the UK. The greenhouses are heated via like a biomass reactor, right? So it's this sort of cyclical process in insanely high-tech farming. So that's going on. And then simultaneously you have other farms in the area as well who are not as mechanized and rely on a great deal of sort of seasonal workers, people that are kind of shipped in from different places, either sometimes on student visas and working illegally, sometimes trafficked illegally, some working legitimately, and simultaneously alongside that as well, there's some quite interesting sort of organised crime stuff going on with cannabis farms away from prying eyes. A very, very sophisticated underground like bunker system. Basically, The Gentleman. You watched The Gentleman?
I watched the first episode.
Yeah, and the film, Guy Ritchie film.
No.
In the film, it's like an aristocrat who has like this ginormous cannabis operation underneath his country seat, and one such farm got found in Lincolnshire very recently. So there's kind of this peculiar maelstrom of forces, isn't there, of kind of left behind English, new wave Eastern European migration, incredibly wealthy landowners around it, and it sort of creates this bizarre mishmash of competing forces, social forces, political forces, and economic forces, doesn't it?
I think Boston feels more self-contained than that, to be perfectly honest.
Go on.
I don't think people are that fussed about the farm, like the forces of the farm outside of it. You didn't feel, when you're speaking to people, they didn't seem that. No one was talking to you about the agriculture in terms of, apart from saying like, oh, people from Eastern Europe go and work on the farms. As a self-contained town, I think the problems Boston faces are much more Boston rather than Lincolnshire, in terms of you go into the city centre, and I say this having gone to a lot of high streets and towns all over the UK, a lot of which are very run down, very deprived. Boston is kind of in a league of its own. Just like looking, it is like really like run down. You turn down a street and it just looks like empty shops with like, but the buildings are like deteriorating as well. They're kind of like almost so that they're like falling down. And it's also got a massive rate of immigration for people from Eastern Europe, starting like the late, like 2009, 2010, with like the Lithuanians, Latvians, Estonians, and as the EU expanded, more people started to come. So we had Bulgarians and Romanians, and there's like a massive prevalence of Eastern European shops in Boston, and obviously in somewhere like London, there's also lots of these shops like for people from different cultures. But the problem that Boston has is it's one of the least integrated places in the UK. I think maybe the least integrated place in the UK. So the rate at which immigration has happened was so quick that there's just all of a sudden this explosion of this different population, and kind of the English people or the native Bostonians have had to put up with this massive demographic shift in such a short amount of time, and at like breakneck speed. And I think a lot of people, the phrase that was used to me was like, you go into town and you just feel alienated. You don't recognize it from how it was when you grew up. And they were saying, they were saying it's not in of itself bad, but the pace at which we are expected to keep up with this demographic change, and also it's not like they've suddenly put in, as the same all over the country, they haven't put in a lot of new doctor surgeries, there's not new infrastructure to put up with these people. Boston is struggling under the strain of this population shift, and kind of as a result, you completely get why these people voted for Brexit in the volume in which they did, because they were like, we were looking for some sort of outlet, some sort of change to express our discontent, or to like hopefully crank the brake and stop something. And I wonder, you can see why now. So Richard Tice is standing in Boston and Skegness, and you can see why they're targeting this as a seat, because it's people looking for an answer, an alternative. And if Brexit wasn't the answer, they're still looking for something. So that's the kind of the energy that Reform will be hoping to capitalise on.
When you say about the integration, I mean, are we talking like there's literally one street that has sort of your typical English high street type, couple of chains, barber shops, vape shops, chicken shops, and then there's another street that has Hungarian and Polish butchers and supermarkets and those, like, describe it to me.
So on like the high streets themselves, there's like a mix of kind of establishments, but I think it's literally like the groups do not integrate. They keep themselves to themselves. A lot of the kind of the more recent immigrants don't really speak English, so there just isn't that community cohesion. There is like the English-speaking Bostonian culture or groups, or people who've immigrated from Eastern Europe previously and have learned English and stuff and integrated more. But they are seeing lots and lots of groups of people arriving who don't speak English and don't seem to be making any kind of effort to learn, I think, or haven't had the chance to, I suppose. And I think what people are concerned about is that Brexit was supposed to be about immigration, but immigration has gone up as well. There's been no change to these people or to immigrants arriving into this place.
Nigel Farage is very, very keen, isn't he, to argue that this is the immigration election. He said it in the debate on Friday. He keeps saying it. And if you look at the UK as a whole, immigration is not the most important issue at this election. It's the economy, and then it's the NHS. That being said, there is a certain demographic of voter, and it's kind of older, previously a conservative. Concern about immigration is spiking. And previously, and what's interesting about that most recent spike is that in previous, decades, concern about immigration has always kind of moved in lockstep, regardless of political affiliation. If you track the salience of immigration as a political issue among Labour and Tory voters, it's of less importance to Labour voters, but the spikes and troughs, they mirror each other. They move up and down. And what's interesting at the moment is that the spike among Tory voters is not being replicated among Labour voters. And so I think what you're seeing, and actually I think part of what the kind of meltdown in Downing Street over the weekend, whether it's the cancelling of the media interviews, the sort of the junking of and revisiting the manifesto in time for this week, that you sort of you've raised the salience of an issue among your base, in this case immigration, by carping on about Rwanda and small boats, which is alienating. And by the way, I think this is Rishi Sunak's masterstroke, is to alienate every single person in Britain. So it's like, if you're one of these reform curious immigration restrictionist, you're going, well, this isn't enough. We're only sending 300 people to Rwanda. If you're a liberal on immigration, you're going, this is appalling. This breaches people's human rights to send people to Rwanda. It doesn't matter who you are. Rishi Sunak has a policy to piss you off. But I think they're strategically really beginning to regret their strategy of basically going after that right flank of the party, of trying to tie that down, because all they've done is they've increased the salience of immigration, and they've opened the door for Nigel Farage to come through and say, well, you're not taking immigration seriously. And I wonder, for that demographic, yes, immigration is more important, but whether or not the economy, the NHS, those other issues are of more importance to people in Boston, perhaps.
I think also, so people, you talked about Rwanda there, the people who are concerned about immigration aren't thick, and completely understand that putting refugees on a plane to Rwanda does nothing about the people coming in legal migration. That's what someone said to me. They're like, I am not remotely fussed about the people coming in on small boats. If anything, I feel sorry for them. I am concerned about the mass number of hundreds of thousands of people coming in legally. That's what they want something done about. And if you're saying, if your flagship immigration policy isn't about immigration, and you've made it such a big song and dance issue, someone like Nigel Farage can be like, look, this isn't going to achieve anything. Look, they're not taking it seriously, because they aren't doing anything serious about it. The whole thing is a stunt.
Yeah, I don't see how putting 300 people, let's say I think it's about 10,000 people so far this year, isn't it, on small boats? The risk of 300 of them being put on a plane to Rwanda, if you're prepared to get in a dinghy and cross the English Channel, your odds of survival of which I would say are lower than that 300 in 10,000 or so. Well, more, because you've got all the other people that have come in previous years. You'd probably say, I quite fancy those odds. I think I'll be all right.
Yeah.
I don't think it works as a deterrent. Speaking of Farage.
Yes.
Suella Braverman today in the Times saying that Nigel Farage should be welcomed into the Tory party. Would be welcomed into the Tory party by her. What do you make of that?
First of all, I'm not convinced Nigel Farage would like to join the Conservative Party.
Yeah. So
I don't want to come.
Thanks, I'm fine. What are you doing on Friday night? I'm busy.
I'm busy. It's my cool party. My party that's more popular than yours, actually. Yeah. I'm not fucking coming to your shit party.
Would you like to join our toxic brand? I'm fine, actually. I think I'm okay.
You've a resurgent... You're about to beat us in the polls, actually. You're about to become the second party in the country.
You should go back and say, actually, Suella Braverman would be welcome in Reform.
I think that's probably true.
I think she would be welcome in
I
Reform.
think that's
Absolutely,
true. I think she's courting the leadership for the next presidency.
They're so interesting, isn't it? Basically, so there's a general election campaign ongoing, and one of the most prominent members of one of the political parties is saying that one of their political opponents would be welcome in their party. But that's insane. That's not what you're meant to do in a general election. You're meant to be competing.
Nigel Farage, who stood up on Friday night and just slagged off the Conservative Party.
Yes.
Like, I like the cut of this guy's jib.
And it's this Kemi Badenoch last week refused to go campaigning with Rishi Sunak in Henley. You know that? Do you remember?
Did she?
Yeah. Do you know what her excuse was? Sports day. She was watching her kids' sports day.
That's sweet.
It's sweet, but it's like fucking general election. Can't pull your finger out, can you? Like, what are you doing? You're one of the most senior government ministers. I mean, it's pretty clear, isn't it? Like
they're not going to win
she's
anyway.
Phoned it in. She has phoned it in massively.
She makes her children's chances at sports day far more than the Conservatives at the general election.
Yeah, that's damning, isn't it? But when the Lib Dems were on that boat behind him, she was meant to be there.
She fucking
Well, no, exactly.
Good on her for missing it.
So she's playing a blinder because it like the whale song, the swan song, isn't it? Whale song's a different thing.
Let's see whale song. Let's see.
The whale song of the Tory party. Yeah, they're abandoning ship. They don't want to be associated with him.
The Conservative Party are trapped in SeaWorld. They are killing themselves by ramming themselves against the glass.
Yeah.
They're trying to...
Who's Tillicum?
Is Tillicum the whale?
Yeah.
The party is.
The party is the whale.
Party is the whale. And it's just mournful.
Dorsal fin slowly folding over.
Trying to kill a keeper. Really trying to take down. Rishi Sunak's the keeper.
Great documentary that, isn't it? Blackfish. Yeah, the one in is it Loro Park in Tenerife? Where they dragged that instructor down to the bottom and just drowned him.
So bleak.
They let him go and he started to swim up and just before he got to the surface they get him again and put him back down again.
So bad. That's cruel.
They're motherfuckers. Incredible animals. Absolutely incredible animals. How mad is it, right? Okay, so when we understand our cognitive development, right, as a species, and we say it's the increase in our cranium size, the increase in our brain size, right, and some other factors that led to us kind of developing, advancing as a species. And it's the size of our brains that's a huge part of it. And then you look at like a sperm whale, right, whose brain is fucking ginormous and is so big, so large, that animal can communicate across oceans with other members of its species, right? It's so loud. When there's a really interesting, I've forgotten the guy's name. I don't think it was Jules Verne, it was someone else. He regularly scuba dives with sperm whales. And he was saying when they start talking and singing and if you're in their immediate vicinity, the vibration of the water is so intense that it feels like all of a sudden the water around you is boiling because it's so hot.
Oh my gosh.
That you lose motor control because of the vibration of the sound waves that are passing through you whilst you're doing it. You're basically just like, you're trapped, you can't move because it's so loud. And something with that bigger brain and that capacity to communicate, and you're sat there wondering, I think this is more than something to help me fall asleep when I'm a little bit stressed out.
The whale swan song.
Like, especially considering that until very recently we were genociding them. Like literally hunting them down and killing them. No wonder this sounds so fucking mournful.
Yeah. Just sad all the time.
Anyway, back to the Tory part. I'd rather talk about whales, to be honest.
That was quite... You leapt to that opportunity. We barely mentioned
Now
whales.
is my time. Actually, I mentioned the whales.
No, that I brought up whales. Excellent. Do you know what? We're talking too much about whales, not enough about whales.
No, we spoke about whales. You didn't listen to the pod. Ava brought up the article I wrote about the Welsh language.
Oh yeah, did you stand by your comments?
I wouldn't say I stood by them. I said, I'm doing it again now. Let's double down. No, well, we were talking about. It was funny actually because we were talking about Vaughan Gething, the no confidence vote, and how it's kind of mad that he's just posting through the pain and is like, I'm not fucking leaving. And so the article got brought up. So simultaneously, you kind of had Welsh nationalists being like, finally, Welsh representation. I'm so glad they're talking about Welsh politics. And they'd listen for like another 3 minutes. They'd be like, what the fuck? This fucking stuff. Who is this guy?
Who is this absolute clown?
Yeah. Well, no, it wasn't like a mea culpa. Because I still do fundamentally, like if you write something, if you publish something, you have to stand over it. And, I can regret it. I can be upset about it.
I don't think you have to stand by it. You can change your mind. You were like 21 when you wrote it.
Yeah. No, I disagree, to be honest with you. I think if you're gonna stand over it at the time and you're gonna publish it, you're kind of locked in to if you have to back your judgment, otherwise you fucking end up deleting everything you've ever posted or written.
I don't think you need to delete it. I think you can
disavow it.
Yeah, that's what Bo Burnham said that about all those early. He's like, no, that was absurd and offensive.
Oh really?
Yeah. He's like, oh, I don't stand by it.
Did he transition to being woke? I just assumed he was born like that.
Have you never seen early Bo Burnham?
I watched Inside because you told me to. That was it.
In like 2009, he was posting like comedy songs that were like jokes about children that you describe them with a word that begins with R.
The Iannucci School of Comedy.
but because he was 16 when he wrote it, he was like, I was sick. Yeah, they were dumb and offensive, and I was 16. He's like.
Well, I did say that, to be fair. I was like, look, it was written in a very offensive way, and I think my politics have matured now where I wouldn't say you should choose language or, poverty. You can have both. You can invest in both.
You can have both poverty and
yeah, you can be
and
poor
a
and speak
language.
English. Welcome to Wales. No, like, I understand, you know, like the sort of the English colonial legacy in Wales and sort of, you know, beating children for speaking Welsh and such. I know it's not as simple as if you don't speak it, you don't get to. But I mean, there is a part of that, right? Like you should, if you want to keep the language, you should speak it.
Yeah.
So fucking try it out.
Yeah, we should revisit this a third time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it. Every time I start a new bit of work, like when I joined Joe, for example, the guy who owned the company at the time tweeted, like, "Welcome, I'm glad Ollie's joining as political editor." And there's like Welsh nationalists in the replies underneath being like, "Have you seen what he said in 2015?" So I look forward to them following me for the rest of my career.
You've done worse.
What is this? What is this? What's going on?
You're being pranked. You wrote that episode of the Thick of It.
Yeah, don't look at the credits. Yeah, guest writer.
Should we do more Farage?
Yeah, we should do more Farage. Look, I don't know. You're about to. This week, I suspect, Reform's going to cross over with the Tories, and surpass them. I don't think the Tories should be saying Farage is welcome in the Tory party. I think he's just going to keep going and be like, no, you can, see you in Reform.
Join out. Yeah, it'd be insane for him to do anything else.
Possibility here, and actually, I mean, fucking Fareham is a pretty, as far as Tory seats go, a safe seat. But let's not write anything off. They could get massacred. When Carol Vorderman told Ava 2 weeks ago, I'm aiming for a Tory wipeout, I previously said I want them to get, I think she said 70. Now I want them to get 35 seats. I was editing it. I remember watching it and thinking that'll never fucking happen. Mm-hmm. 35. I mean, I get it, Carol. You know, it's grabby, it's fun, but no chance. Now, I'm a buyer.
Really?
I think it's certainly possible.
It is possible.
But okay, so let's say there are 35 of them, and I don't know. There's a Kemi, maybe there's a fucking Suella in like a rump in the Parliament. Not even the official opposition, which, by the way, is something to consider in a moment when we talk about Farage, about how Conservatives are desperate, right? Imagined or real, Liberal elite. And you imagine if in our Parliament there's like a Labour supermajority and then the official opposition is the Lib Dems. Mm-hmm. That is the Liberal elite. If you want to be Farage and you want to wage a campaign from like the backbenches of the Commons, I mean, it's fucking catnip, right? But nonetheless, let's say they are reduced to like a rump of MPs of around 30 and Reform has 2, but Reform has... Imagine if Reform get more votes total in the election than the Tories. Possible. Also possible. You then have... I think Farage is then in a position of strength to say, no, you can defect. You can defect to Reform if you want to. But I find the mechanism, like what will happen between those two competing interests, I find really interesting.
They'll have to become a much more serious operation.
Reform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'd have to become a proper political party, not a business.
Yeah.
They'd have to have a proper slate of policies that aren't just like, globalists!
We're calling a press conference. Nigel is now the leader. Like, typically, actually, guys, in most political parties, there's usually some form of election to decide.
We had this kind of backroom deal.
Yeah,
where
there's usually some form of party democracy that dictates that. No. They will have to change that.
They have to change that, and
maybe not. Maybe they won't.
I don't know. They'd have to engage with issues a lot more seriously than just like go down the local golf club and canvass opinions from men in jumpers.
Okay, this is the interesting thing, and it connects to this Suella Farage stuff, and it connects to Macron calling the snap election in France, because when we look to Europe and the rise of the far right, radical right, hard right. I mean, it varies because some of these parties now have kind of moved away from their previous, like, explicitly racist, anti-Semitic backgrounds.
They hide it now.
Yeah, they've civilized themselves.
It's covert.
It's much more dog whistle now, rather than explicit. They move.
Sorry, just on that, people talking about Nigel Farage's dog whistle comments over the weekend. I'm not sure how dog whistle they were. I think they were quite overt.
What? Which ones?
Which one?
Yeah.
Specifically talking about suggesting that Sunak's background or culture means he can't understand the concept of remembrance.
I mean, he's British, isn't he, Rishi Sunak?
Yeah. It is. So I describe that. That's not dog whistle. That's overt.
Yeah,
that is overt.
That's you've got Indian heritage.
Yeah. So you can't possibly imagine what us white Brits do. It's
Yeah, and there's also an erasure of the significant contribution of Muslim soldiers, Sikh soldiers, Hindu soldiers in the First and Second World War.
Yeah, it's interesting. People call that dog whistle, which I think kind of quite euphemistic for something that is, you know,
cut to the Daily Telegraph's political editor in the Munich beer hall being like, well, there's some dog whistle politics going on here. As they march, the putsch begins.
I think with my ear to the ground, they might be suggesting something else. So that man, he seems to be up. That's an image of a puppet.
Well, actually, the adults are back in the room, and the purge of communists. No, this is just making the party more electable. This is just making the party more electable.
What is this dog whistle? As I throw socialists from his helicopter?
No, this isn't a book burning. This is just good old sensible centrist politics. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Right. So you see right in the European elections, AfD, fucking national rally, as they're now called, right? These radical right, hard right political parties polling very well, between sort of 20%, 30%. And in some cases beating the establishment parties. But what's interesting about them is that there's a very significant part of their support that is from the extremely young, from sort of 18 to 24-year-olds, 18 to 30-year-olds. And it depends on which political party you're looking at, but it's, 20% and upwards. Which in like the general electorate, you might think, well, that's kind of to be expected, right? If they're polling sort of 20, 30% and 20, 30% of young people are voting for them, it scans. But it's interesting, right, because here in the UK, that's not happening at all. There is no broad base of support for that version of politics among younger people, younger generations. And that's why I think this Starmer government is going to be in a moment of maximum danger. And I think you might disagree with me on this in a moment. But basically, Farage and possibly the Suellas and the Kemis in this new Tory. We'll work on that. Reform plus Tory, I don't know.
I didn't really know what you mean.
No, yeah, it didn't work. You didn't get it.
Sorry.
Conform.
Conformists.
The conformists.
That's good. They're going to hate that.
Yeah, they will hate that.
Make sure you go away. People kept going like popcorn.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
And National Conservatives, Nazis.
Just as if that's like in any way undermining. In fairness, calling them Nazis is undermining. The popcorn one, less so.
Popcorn makes them sound pretty harmless.
Yeah.
So the challenge and what Farage is seeking to do, because if you look at Ava's dispatch from Clacton last week, the people she's talking to, they are your sort of stereotypical UKIP reform voter. Man, obviously she doesn't ask people their age when she interviews them, but you sort of say mid-50s or older. White, disaffected, unhappy, upset, angry. And the question is whether or not the conformists are seeking to replicate this popularity for the politics of the hard right among younger generations. I mean, it happens in America as well. It's fucking plain for all to see, right? Whether or not they can create an electoral coalition that simultaneously holds together Clacton man with fucking an 18-year-old who can't buy a house. And I think that's an interesting proposition. I think it's a very difficult proposition.
I think it's difficult. I think I don't know if it's unique to the UK, but the right has been hammering the young for 14 years. And that's these people aren't suddenly going to go. There's been no identification from the right of being like, shit, we have alienated all these people. They didn't like Brexit. They don't like not being able to buy a house. They don't want to join the army. And their
tuition fees.
Yeah, they're getting like triple triple locked. So I think that's in
contracts. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's. We haven't identified that yet.
If your political proposition is that you will actively wage war on the younger generation,
why won't they vote for me?
To basically like arouse your base, which is like pensioners basically, who think that the younger generation are like feckless and work shy because they didn't have to go through rationing. Those chickens will come home to roost. And that's why I think it's very possible that a sort of the Tory brand is toxic, so the non-toxic brand of reform could now be a vehicle by which all Farage has to do basically is come out on sort of house building and a few other bits and pieces, and I think all of a sudden he could start to build a bit of a base of support there and start to bring that new coalition together.
I don't know. I actually don't know if Farage is the man to do that. I don't know if reform is the vehicle.
What do you mean?
For that, I don't think Farage is cool to these people. Farage is funny if you're a normie who likes I'm a celebrity and sees his cameos. You think ha ha ha, whatever. But if you're like a guy who's like in the forums, if you're like one of these people who comes across my Twitter every so often and talks about my skull shape, like, and that's true.
Those guys are a minority. Like, let's not kid ourselves.
No, but they're still on the right. They're still like they want like a canny technocrat, someone who's like, I don't know. I think they want someone younger who doesn't have they want a blank slate than Nigel Farage, a blanker slate than Nigel Farage.
Is what Nigel said. It is what he said when he launched. He said, for the next 5 years, I'm going to lead this party, and then someone younger is going to have to take over.
I think Nigel Farage has got, you're never going to learn anything new about Nigel Farage. He's never going to really change anyone's mind about him necessarily. I think there is an energy, untapped youth energy, youth focus, like the Dino vote, I suppose, is actually who they're going to aim to go for. And I don't think, well, if you're in a party with fucking Richard Tice, like Richard Tice isn't going to be the man to command halls of 18 to 30 year olds. Like Richard Tice is the archetypal golf club bore, like ranting about, like globalists in California. That's not what people actually care about. If they started taking like people's concerns seriously and promising to do something about it. Like, you said if there's a right wing party really serious about house building, they'd being an electoral proposition you'd be interested in hearing. But for now, it's like which of these parties which are ignoring me is the least racist. That is maybe that is the option. That is the option for young people.
Oh God!
You can see actually as well. You can see in Scotland.
Is it the Lib Dems? Are we going to end up fucking voting for
the
Lib Dems?
You're obsessed with the Lib Dems. You're not going to make me vote for the Lib Dems. But in Scotland, like
I'm not voting for the Lib Dems. By the way, I just want to be absolutely clear about that. I will never forgive them, Ed.
You won't ever forgive them because you're an old man. How can you tell someone's in their 30s they're angry at the Lib Dems?
How old are you?
27.
Right. Okay, so what does a cool hip 27-year-old? What's the TikTok line on the Lib Dems?
I don't think they'd care. I think the cool thing to do for like cool lefties to do is to vote for the Green Party.
Don't vote.
No, I think people do vote. I think voting is cool. Oh, that wasn't endorsing the Green Party, by the way. That was an observation about the online left.
You're going to have to endorse someone.
No, I'm not.
Yeah. Well, that's it. He doesn't want you to vote.
No, I think you should vote.
For who?
Whoever you think's best.
Who's that?
I can't say what they think. It's subjective.
Who do you think is best?
It's private.
No, it's not.
Yes, it fundamentally is. It's
no, yeah.
If
you're a regular citizen,
which I am.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
Right. Who else is this? You're a tastemaker. You're a thought leader.
I'm a thought leader.
Yeah.
I am a thought leader, and that's why I'm endorsing.
So lead some thoughts, buddy.
Workers' Party of Great Britain.
Fucking hell.
I'm a Galloway guy.
That's bleak.
I'm a gal head. I'm a gal, guys and gals. But back to the youthful energy, the SNP managed to tap into that quite well in Scotland.
Yes. Yeah, buddy. I forgot. A big independence guy, aren't you?
Huge, massive. And they have to... young people in Scotland are like so tied to the SNP now and independence. And
I did enjoy your embittered tweeting about Stephen Flynn during the debate. Yeah, being like, actually, the SNP fucking sucks like this. Meanwhile, we're putting out clips of Flynn being like, this guy, heart emojis. It's like 20,000 likes. And you're there tweeting, being like, actually, the SNP kind of fucking sucks.
I would just like a degree of intellectual honesty of people to engage with SNP as if they're a governing party and have been for 17 years.
Yes.
I think it's fucking useful for us. We're fucking, and you lot, you fucking lap this up, you absolute fucking cocks. Just being like, ooh, they're so progressive. You've never been to Scotland.
I did think that we'd done a little bit too much serious politics on this podcast. We were quite serious talking about the new right and their electoral prospects, and I'm so glad we've got back to calling the audience cucks again.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been too long.
You're embarrassing.
They don't call it the Tice chair in those hotels. They call it the PoliticsJOE audience chair. That's you guys sat there watching us podcast right now.
I've never respected anyone less.
Yeah,
actually,
I hate our audience.
Oh, me too. Total contempt. They don't know what they don't know what they. Laura and I had a conversation once about your interview with Judith Butler. And we were diagnosed because they didn't do terribly well on the platform. And we were kind of discussing why it didn't do well. Was it like the headline? And I said, maybe just the audience just aren't interested. And Laura went, well, they should be. It's like, well, no, of course they should be. But we can't change their minds, sadly. So this is actually a directive to go and watch the Judith Butler. If there's not a massive spike in views after this,
we will stop podcasting.
We will stop. Yeah, that's an ultimatum. If there's not 1 million views on Judith Butler,
all of you have to watch the Judith Butler interview start to finish at least 5 times before tomorrow.
I want a retention rate of 100%. Otherwise, no more podcasts. What else should they watch that's done badly? And also, my interview with the body language expert was fine. It wasn't pseudoscience, it was science.
Nice.
Anything else we would like to take the audience to task put over?
No.
No,
I think we should put some clips in from Friday night's election debate coverage. I think we should play some of the stuff that they were doing, because that was on YouTube only. It's not in the pod feed. So I think we should give the audio only guys some content.
Should we tell them what they were doing?
Yeah, we were live at the BBC Leaders debate doing preview and reaction.
Ava and Laura
holding it down. Sean was there too,
and Sam was filming it. Don't know what Sean was doing. Getting assaulted. Yeah, getting beat up.
No.
Getting his head kicked in by Nigel Farage.
I wouldn't have put it... I always thought that Sean was like quite hard, right? Not least because he included on his CV the fact that he was at one point Ireland's youngest ever black belt.
Mm.
He's a hard guy, or at least I was led to believe that he was a hard guy. And then he goes and gets fucking filled in by a spad. That is embarrassing.
Some wee dweeb with a briefcase.
Wearing a next suit. I mean, fucking come on. These people are pathetic. I thought Sean was Bobby Knuckles. No.
No, he's just...
I'm really getting this in now, because he's going to demand a production team microphone after this. Like, this is if you want to insult him in front of the this is your only chance.
What else? What's Sean done that's not that up to scratch?
He's actually very good at his job, annoyingly.
Is that annoying?
Well, I'd like to be able to cuss him out.
I'm desperate to get rid of him.
I'd like to be able to cuss him out on the podcast.
Can I talk about the stuff I saw at the farm?
Yeah, why not? Let's go full circle. Oh, well, no, we need to play the clips from the debate first.
Oh, boring. Okay. Oh, once you've made it through that, they just know there's some great farm content coming up.
Okay, roll the clips.
What you were talking about there with the IFS was Stephen Flynn pointing out to Angela Rayner this IFS report, and he was saying, so are you essentially calling the IFS a liar? Are you saying that they aren't telling the truth? And Rayner didn't push back on that. So she almost had her Starmer moment from the other night again tonight by not refuting claims made by other opposition leaders quick enough.
Definitely. I think
Thank you.
it might be, it would be kind of dangerous territory for this to become a recurring theme of the campaign for Labour, especially considering how we saw Angela really trying to promote the Labour Party as the party of fiscal responsibility tonight. We saw her saying that the Conservatives had played fast and loose with the economy and invoking Liz Truss and saying that the Labour Party would never do that. And that's playing in, I guess, to Rachel Reeves' kind of driving grand strategy to do with economics, which she calls securonomics. And you see Labour trying to present themselves in that way, and then it being undercut by them not being able to answer these questions or getting flustered by them.
Because one thing that was odd was that I think that we've got someone to join us. Hi, how are you?
Should we switch out? Would you like?
No. Why don't you?
Have you finished? I don't want to just march in.
No. Please
Okay,
do come in.
amazing.
We're actually
Thank you.
live at the moment. Would you like to introduce yourself to the Joe audience?
Yes, absolutely. I'm Zach Polanski. I'm Deputy Leader of the Green Party of England and Wales. I'm also a member of the London Assembly.
Can you tell me how you thought Carla did tonight?
I am very happy, as you might be able to tell. I just think we've had 14 years of this Conservative government, and they are toast. They are gone. And then we've got this Labour Party that have just refused to oppose at every level. And I think we saw that tonight. We saw this bickering between Angela Rayner and Penny Mordaunt. And as Carla Denyer for the Green Party said, it just wasn't particularly dignified. But I think having the Green Party on stage with real change, real hope, actually having sensible policies about how to do things to protect the NHS, to redistribute wealth, so wealth tax on multimillionaires and billionaires, to put that money back into public services. And the fact she stood there and applauded migrants. We don't just, tolerate migration, we celebrate migrants. And I was really genuinely pleased to hear the audience clapping that too. It really shows you that this anti-migration rhetoric we hear from the two old parties all the time and the establishment media, I'm not including PoliticsJOE, don't worry, but that's actually not who this country is. This country does not want us to divide communities. They want us to bring communities together. So I'm a bit hyper. I've really enjoyed the debate.
Well, good for you. Would you like to introduce yourself to the PoliticsJOE viewers?
Yep, I'm Rhys Fiorwyth and I'm the leader of Plaid Cymru, fresh from the auditorium and still haven't taken my makeup off.
Well, you look very calm and collected considering that you've just been up on stage. I've got to ask you as well about the workers. So, over the past decade or so, you've seen many industries vacating Wales. You've got a current issue in Port Talbot at the moment with the steelworks. You've also got, the remnants of British Rail are sort of scattered around the country. I mean, what would you do differently in order to keep those businesses in Wales?
Well, and I've seen many, sort of in my part of Wales, many job losses in recent years. We need to build a new kind of economy. Steel is a good example, actually, right? Because the Tata Steelworks in Port Talbot are not only massively important in terms of jobs for Port Talbot and a much wider area. Surely having a steelworks there producing primary steel is of a strategic importance to the UK. If it is of strategic importance to the UK, who would disagree with that? Government should be, having an eye on the future and saying we need to invest in this. I say nationalise it. If Tata are pulling out, nationalise it. Take it into public ownership.
Nationalise steelworks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if it means that the only the alternative would be to close it down as a primary steel making facility, they want to turn it into an electric arc furnace, which is recycling essentially.
And there's huge government subsidies.
We need primary steel making. But when you look at something that is genuinely of strategic importance, we're talking about very small sums of money. Yes, there are many, many millions, but in the big scheme of things, the need to keep this for the future, in terms of the jobs, in terms of what it provides for the economy, just invest. And it's just a good example of government recognising that it can be bold, that it can make bold investment decisions. Steel is a good example, but you can look at all sorts of different ways of supporting industry. In other industries, it's making sure that the skills are there, apprenticeships are there. And one point that I've been making recently is that government is all too often interested in short-term measures, doing things that might give them a return by the next election. Let's start thinking in the long term and making investments in connectivity, transport, digital, that will generate economic activity for years to come.
What did you make of that?
nationalise the steelworks, did I hear him say?
I know. I was stunned into silence.
As someone that's been to Port Talbot and reported from the steelworks and the job losses there, what did you make of that?
Well, I felt like he knew his audience. That's very well here. I mean, absolutely. I think one thing that's fascinating about Port Talbot is the huge level of subsidy that has been poured into it by the Conservative government. Rishi Sunak has done many a deal with Tata Steel to keep the steelworks open, but that has transpired into the steelworks closing and this transition into an electric furnace. That was sort of the headline of that, is that it's green policy, green climate policy that is killing off British industry, when in actual fact it's foreign investment that is basically looking at the numbers and going, no profit, we don't want to be here.
It's cheaper to run it somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we had Stephen Flynn bringing up nationalised water and rail in Scotland as well. How do you think it will feel, or how do you think it does feel for English viewers watching that, maybe wishing for some similar policies? I mean, obviously Labour have pledged some nationalisation of the rail, and hearing devolved nations be so much more radical on these things. How do you think they'll feel about that?
Well, as an English voter, as an English constituent who has both been subjected to huge fees on our student loans and also is now frightened of the tap water, it was two hard things to hear tonight.
Well, that was boring, Ed. Why don't you tell us what you saw at the farm?
Yeah, I'm glad. Well, congratulations on sitting through that pile of crap. And here's your reward, talking about farms. I went to one of the farms that we talked about at the beginning of the episode in Lincolnshire. And
to be absolutely clear, no implication that this farm in any way it connects to organised crime or people trafficking. Just want to make that clear.
Absolutely not. They were doing their potato yield.
Nice.
And I saw some of the biggest machinery I've ever seen in my entire life.
Combine harvester?
Yeah, fucking huge. It was like 5 cars on top of each other. It was astonishing how big these things were.
Did you go inside the cab? Did you get inside it?
I went inside a machine. I can't remember what it was, but it had joysticks and screens all over. It felt like you were in a fighter jet.
They're insanely high tech.
It was insane.
They've got insane gear ratios, incredible aircon, all sorts of insane sound systems. They're fun.
That's what when people talk about Boston and Lincolnshire, they talk about the prevalence of Eastern European immigrants. It is to work on farms, because essentially most people I spoke to said English people will not do these jobs. These jobs need done, and it's the Eastern Europeans who do them. And as I was walking around this workshop, the farmer, his name was David, was pointing out machines to me and saying that there was one that it would fill bags with potatoes and then they'd be sewn shut, and the whole thing was completely automated. And he was like, that would save me a man's salary. That machine over there would save me a man's salary. So I was thinking ooh, you're kind of automizing work at the expense of people's kind of livelihoods. And I spoke to one of the workers, who was a Romanian guy, about it. And I was like, are you concerned about being replaced by machines? And he was like, well, it's so difficult to get people to do these jobs anyway. These jobs need done, and machines are more reliable than people who might not turn up to work tomorrow. So he's like, it kind of comes with the territory. I'm not that fussed about it.
Fully automated luxury communism.
Yeah, fully automated farms. Communism. I don't think this guy was a communist, to be fair.
Famously, though, quite often there are some farms in communism, aren't there? Collective farms.
Yes.
So
that's what communism is. Just agrarian policy. I don't think that
you walking around the Lincolnshire countryside being like, communist. Communist. And in your interview with David, did you challenge him on the process of collectivization and sending the liberal intelligentsia to the gulag?
I denounced him, actually.
Yeah, good.
To the local Politburo, and we will not be hearing from David ever again, I'm afraid.
Cool. Is that us?
Yes, I think so. Do you have anything else?
We've been going for quite some time,
Oh, I had an observation or a thought. Someone like Tommy Robinson is more likely to capitalise on youth frustration than Nigel Farage.
Tommy Robinson was tweeting the other day that he's frustrated that he and his followers aren't allowed to join Reform. They're currently... They're
Imagine being too racist for Reform.
yeah, I think there's a ban on the Democratic Football Lads Alliance, BNP, and other sort of like extreme right-wing groups. They're not allowed to join.
I think that's a good call by them. One of their few. But then considering the candidates who they have selected.
Well, they had to deselect a couple, didn't they?
Yeah.
After that, I think, was it a Channel 4 piece?
It's been like, you've used this racial slur, and the guy's like, yeah. They were being racial slurs.
Ooh. Right. I think that's the end of the episode, Ed.
Yeah. Do you got anything else?
Other than my professional love and respect for you? No.
No. Well, that's good. Back at you.
Well, I was about to say clearly unrequited,
No.
but you saved it. Yeah.
Ditto.
Okay. You might not see us on the next one. You've got to go and watch the Judith Butler interview now.
In full, leave a comment.
So you're cool. You're cool.
Leave a comment and let us know what you learned from the interview.
Yeah, I want a 2,000 word essay from each of you about gender.
Absolutely. And a book review of one of Judith Butler's publications, please. And not just the one that they're promoting. Go back.
Back catalogue.
Back in the canon.
The law.
We'll make feminists out of these meninists anytime now.
What proportion of our audience do you think are incels?
100%. Not one person watching this has ever had sex.
Watched a lot of sex happening in their vicinity from the cuck chair in the hotel room, but never participated. Always from the corner.
They've never had sex with their own wife.
Are they married?
No. Their wife is what they call their sex doll.
Jesus.
Just watching friends take turns on it. How deviant would that be? You organise group sex with your sex doll. After you've watched the Judith Butler interview, maybe go outside. Maybe go for a walk.
I think you need to go outside. Fucking talking about... Good grief. Can we finish now?
That's what they're saying. That's what they're saying to their friends.
This is the end. The podcast is done.
I think so. Like and subscribe.
Goodbye.
Bye.